Hello, hello. Welcome back, everybody, to Spiritual Sisters Podcast. It's me, Nicole. Welcome, welcome.
Hi, friends. It's Gabrielle Celeste. And we're so excited to welcome my doctor, Dr. Christina Pabers, to the show for a very special episode focused on women's reproductive women's reproductive organs, that system, intuition, and how all the things come together. So welcome, Christina. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, I'm so excited to do this. Thank you for having me. Thank you for making this happen and for doing all the good work you're doing. I'm really enjoying your podcasts.
Aw, thank you for saying that.
And they're so well done also. Yeah. I love this.
We've been faking it till we make it.
You're doing a great job. Yeah.
Thank you. It's trial and error. Lots of figuring out things.
You got to have the courage and gumption to just do it and move through, and clearly you're putting in the effort, so they're turning out so well. And
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. So we like to ask our guests a couple of questions to begin, and then we like to get into just, you sharing a little bit of your story and how you got into the work and really get into the meat of the episode, which I think is going to be fascinating. We have a lot of spiritual girlies in the audience. And I was telling Nicole, and you separately, of course, today too, I was like, I really feel like we're just going to learn so much. So to begin, what are your big three in astrology?
All right. My sun is in Gemini, and my moon is in Aquarius, and my Capricorn is rising.
Oh, okay. So
we're entering her season.
She reads for me. Gabriella reads for me, so she's kind of a doctor for me.
I was going to say, she probably knows your big three, because I think she knows everybody's.
I said, maybe you should just talk about it.
Yeah. Gabby, what's her big three? Tell us.
All right. Well, I love Christina's chart because she has her North Node conjunct her ascendant, so her Cap rising. So she is a people person, but she's extremely hardworking. And I just love that a bit about your big three. So just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what is your human design profile and makeup?
I wasn't really familiar with that, so I'm going to report it without knowing a lot of what it looks like. But basically, I'm a sacral manifesting generator.
Same.
And hello. And then 2/4.
2/4, yeah.
2/4.
Yeah.
I think that's our girlfriend Maria is the same, I want to say. And I think that's the easy breezy genius where like you really enjoy your hermit energy and being to yourself, but people really enjoy being in your energy. And it's just kind of like, the wisdom and all that information of life in general just comes very easily to you. And I very much feel that, especially because I learned from you and you're a teacher for me. So it's super fitting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That has to be hard to want to be a hermit, but then to have other people like wanting to be in like and around you all the time, that has to be overwhelming.
Well, I actually love people, and that's why the work that I am with people all the time, talking and listening. And so, but it's in the space of the healing treatment rooms, which are somewhat hermetic. And there's a lot of sacred space and kind of alone time within it. And I don't know, I feel like I've struck a balance. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see. It's a living, breathing thing, right? To try to stay balanced. Totally.
So do you have any podcasts that you would recommend?
I'm the podcast queen.
Oh, wait! How many are in your queue? How many are in your library?
I don't even know. I just don't know. I'm a Gemini, so I love reading and listening. So anyway, I put 4 in. So one is Arith Harriger, and he's an anthropologist specializing in Scandinavian spirituality. So he's one. And then Benabel Wen, who's actually in Los Angeles. And I love her because she and I actually have some similar things where we she focuses on Western esotericism, but also Chinese esotericism, mostly Taoism. So her books and tarot card deck really encompass both. She's amazing. And then I have notes. Sorry. I love the Irish Pagan School. They do amazing work. That's Lori O'Brien and John Sullivan. And then the last one I was going to mention is Adunola, the Oracle, and she focuses on the Orisha tradition coming out of Africa. And I really enjoy her as well. But
Wow.
many, many more. I have so many more that I love.
I'm like, I've never heard of any of these, but I'm like, I gotta check them out. Yeah.
Yeah.
New schools of thought.
Really good work. Yeah. All of them. Yeah.
Okay. And you are highly intuitive. So if you had the chance to support anyone in a session and or read for them, alive or dead, who would that be if you had the chance?
This was really like the opportunity to attend to somebody and to nourish them and to help support them. I feel like it's such a sacred thing. So the person who I chose, even though of course there are many, is a woman she's late, so she's deceased. Her written work is goes by the name of Mama Zogbe, but her kind of Western name is Vivian Hunter Hindrew, and she wrote the book The Sibyls, which is the first prophetess of Mamiwata, and it's not real well known work. For the work that she's done, which was incredible history and looking up, documents that were, from Greece and Rome and, a lot of the very challenging things to research, and then talk about the Sibyls. And the Sibyls were the prophetesses discussed in the Bible. They're talked about in Roman and Greek records, and connect that to Africa. And it's pretty powerful work. And so if I could give to somebody in that way, it would be her.
That's so cool. I've never heard of that book, but another thing for me to check out.
It's work that needs to be put out there. And the podcaster Adunola, she talks about it. There are others as well. Just look up Mamiwata.
Okay.
Like mother of water. The mother who came out of the water. It's really powerful work. Yeah.
Add it to your list, Gabs.
I know, seriously.
So much, right?
I love it. Okay, and then final question.
Okay.
For this section of questions, what concert would you go to for any artist, either living or dead?
Oh my, that's like the most challenging. How could you even ask me to name one?
All right.
Jimi Hendrix, Prince, and Tracy Chapman.
Oh, okay.
I love it.
Just one.
Hey, that might work. Let's see. Who would be the opener for that? So maybe Tracy Chapman, followed by
She's
Prince,
alive,
followed by
so.
Jimi Hendrix.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that order. I think that works. Yeah.
Oh, I love
Did you
that
see the
answer.
Grammys when she performed with, oh gosh, what's his name? Luke Combs, maybe? And it was so, I just thought about it. I got chills again. It was so good.
Did you cry, Nicole?
I think I did cry. I don't know why.
It's
not like I had any connection to that song or either of those artists, but it was just such a powerful moment. And she, was just she wasn't very big, but that song was really big back in, the 90s. And so it was just like, oh shoot, this is really, really cool. Yeah, I think I cried like a dummy anyway.
She's all heart. She's brilliant. And, I know all her songs by heart, and she's amazing.
Yeah. I'm glad that she got the attention now, 30 some years later that, she deserved then. So that's really cool. So today, spiritual Barbies.
Close my notes.
And spiritual Ken.
Sorry.
No, you're good. We're going to be talking about So background, let me back up. Christina is my doctor, my acupuncturist that focuses in traditional Chinese medicine. And I'm going to let her obviously cover all of that because I feel like I just butchered it even introducing it.
No.
No? Okay, good. But I wanted to share just like how, and we're going to speak to this throughout the episode, but how we came to know one another. And I just also wanted to add that during our time working together, I really feel like your support in helping me heal my womb space was really such a pivotal moment and part of my journey in developing my intuition. And I've been so fascinated throughout our multiple conversations in the various sessions that I've had with you, just just the wealth of wisdom and the walking library that you are in relation to that specific area. And so I would love to pass it to you and just give you the opportunity to introduce yourself, the work that you do, and we can, navigate into that area of the episode.
Aw, thank you. Well,
Yeah.
I do also want to say before I talk about that, Gabrielle, you have given me so much and done a lot to empower me, which is, you were coming to me for traditional Chinese medicine sessions, and yet you managed to give so much within the session I'm giving to you, supporting me, and then me getting consultations for you. You've been such an empowering force for me, especially during a time that was really vulnerable for me and quite pivotal for me. So I do want to publicly thank you for that, and just you're a powerful person.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a blessing to meet you, Nicole.
Thank you.
So.
Gabby's small but mighty. She packs a lot into that little body, and I was laughing when you were saying that because I was like, Gabby doesn't know how to like go somewhere and just kind of be like in the background, like being a wallflower isn't her thing. So I think person she comes in contact with, she's able to make a very interesting connection with so many different people on different levels because she's very inquisitive. So she's going to come in and she's going to ask you the 10 questions that she's thinking, where somebody else might have a lot of questions, but they're not going to maybe ask, or if they do, they're going to ask one. And Gabby is just going to be like, nope, I'm going to ask them all. I'm going to tell you everything that's going on in my mind, and you're going to answer all my questions.
It's a gift.
Thanks.
It's a gift.
Since she was a little girl.
Oh, I can imagine that.
It's funny
because I want to see a picture. You got to show that on.
I'll definitely show you. It's funny because Nicole says that, and I'm just like, do I do that? Am I like that? So it's just kind of those things that you learn about yourself through the eyes of another. But anyways, this episode is not about me. It is about you, and I'm just so excited to get into just the work that you do because I really feel it's so impactful and so important and so needed. And I don't know that it gets enough attention that it deserves.
Thank you. Well, okay. So Chinese medicine, I got a medical degree in traditional Chinese medicine and then a PhD in classical Chinese medicine. And so Chinese medicine basically has 5 strands or 5 branches, and one of those is acupuncture, and then herbalism, Chinese nutrition, qigong, and Chinese massage. So, and then there's cupping and all kinds of things. So it's really you become a general practitioner. And then to go get your PhD in classical Chinese medicine means that my interest was in pre-communist China and the esoteric version of Chinese medicine. So there's the modern day Chinese medicine, which really tries to kind of bring it a little bit more into the realm of science, which is great. I love that too. And it's needed. And of course I follow that. But classical means you wanted to really delve into the classic texts, the 5,000-year-old texts. And Chinese medicine started out really familially, like tribal medicine, and was passed down, in lineages. So so it's like you really can't study classical Chinese medicine without starting to think about esoteric knowledge in general of the world. And so that launched me into really a quest to understand esoteric indigenous medicine all over the world. And I am not an expert. I'm a student. But that's my passion. It's my favorite topic besides healing.
That's so
Yeah.
cool.
Thank
I
you.
didn't know that background piece and your area of expertise in it, which is so cool. I because you use that wisdom and that knowledge, and you remain a humble student of the work, the ancient work, and you apply it to supporting women, and I mean other people as well, of course, but with their ovaries and their reproductive organs and their cycles, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's how we got connected back in 2020, I believe. And I was coming to you. It's funny, my girlfriend Natalie, her and her mom were actually like so important figures in like the start of my spiritual journey. And Natalie was like, I think you should go to acupuncture. I think you should go to acupuncture. And like once I started seeing you a couple of times, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that this could be supportive for the issues I was having with my ovaries, which full disclosure, I have ovarian cysts. And since working with you, I was able to regulate my cycles and really get aligned with the moons, the new and the full moons, and lean into that aspect. That's I don't know that as many women, I feel like it's getting a lot of traction now, but are really more like they're paying attention to that aspect of like themselves because it's directly linked to their overall health.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, previous to now, science and spirituality were connected. They were totally connected. And in some ways, it's good that they're separate. They're absolutely, there are good things, but I think that it's very helpful to understand how indigenous peoples looked at fertility and how of men and women, because really what they were was students of nature. And by understanding the sun and the moon and the cycles of the earth and the seasons and how water flows through the earth and how you know, fluids and earth and the air and fire and metal, all of the five elements work in nature, we can actually better make sense and have a lot more intuition about how the body works. And so, especially when it comes to fertility, I think, which means regulating the cycles. So if you want to be fertile, you know, in general, you have to regulate the cycles. You can get technology involved, and, you know, I'm not saying that you always have to do that, but in general, you want your menstrual cycles to be regulated and healthy. And when you do that, actually your whole body is harmonized, and then fertility is granted or achieved.
I was going to say, I guess, what would you say is like the value in aligning that aside from just being fertile? And I guess how would that look like for men as well? Because so for me, like my understanding is like a period. It's that way of a woman's purging their energy and resetting themselves. Whereas like a man, like when they ejaculate, that's the way that they purge their energy. And so I guess I'm just trying to understand like the value in cycling or aligning that cycle to what's going on with planet Earth and nature and all the things.
Well, okay, we could start with the moon, because I think maybe we started mentioning the moon. So the moon cycles affect water, and humans are anywhere between 60 to 70% water or less, and then you'll be really unhealthy. But so whether you are a fisherman and you're reading Bass Pro magazine, or some of these the Farmer's Almanac, you're going to see the cycles of the moon and how they affect the fish and the waves and everything else. That's affecting our bodies, male and female, because we are water. And our the thing that's talked about a lot in this field is the pineal gland, which is reading the amount of light in the night sky. And as the moon, which is the dark moon, which means there's no moon in the sky, starts to get brighter and brighter and brighter as over 14 days it works to a full moon. The pineal gland, especially when we are actually outside at night, starts to regulate based upon that increasing light. And then once the moon is full, and men are doing it too. We just don't see it so much, but it's happening in men too. And then after that full moon, the cycle starts to wane in the moon, which means it's working toward blackness. And the pineal gland is seeing that. And our body is reading it, even if we don't see it. So if you live in a place with a lot of artificial lighting at night, you're still going to get it. It's just might be a little bit more difficult. But in general, if you could go outside and expose yourself to the nighttime every day, every night, a little bit, even just a little bit, and also during the day, just a little bit or a lot, preferably, then already your eyes are one of those organs that is designed to attune and signal your body and all of its functions to the earth. And so the cycles, we are nothing but cycle. No, we're everything in cycles. Breath is a cycle. Bowel movements are a cycle. Our appetite is a cycle. Our sleeping is a cycle. Our sex drive is a cycle. Everything is based on cycles. And so it is one of the keys to health. It's not the only key, but it is definitely one of them. And we're challenged that way. Sorry, am I going on too long?
No.
We're challenged that way because the screens, the phones, the TVs, the smart TVs, they're full of blue light, number one, and blue light tells the body, because the eyes are designed to see and be signaled. It tells the body that we should be awake, and there's just one cycle, the blue light cycle, where, so we need to decrease our screen time as much as possible while still being in this world. I'm not saying get rid of computers. So there's that. There's the EMFs, which is the electromagnetic fields. Those are also imposing a frequency, and our brains are energy transmitters, which means they put out a frequency, but they are also designed to accept and receive frequencies. So we are bombarded with a lot of technological frequencies and light, both of which signal our body and its functionings. So the more powerful that is, the more powerfully we need to grab onto Mother Nature and align ourselves with her, because she's the one who actually can give us the frequencies that we need to be healthy, even though we can do good things with technology.
I always try to put my phone away by a certain time. I don't do it, but I try to. I have my phone set to have the blue light kind of start going off around 6:30, so the screen will start kind of turning to that brownish, whatever color you can set it to. But I always forget about the TVs. And I don't watch a lot of TV, but I do try to watch something maybe before bed. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm doing great, because, my computer starts doing that at 8 o'clock. My phone starts doing it at 6:30. And I was telling my husband recently that I heard you should, if you can, replace the bulbs in your bedroom with red light, so that it also helps to signal your body that it's time for bed. I just don't think I can do that yet, but I would love to be able to do that, just to, try to start, what's the word? Like regulating my system, especially in the evening, because I do have a hard time sleeping. Not so much anymore, but I used to have a really hard time falling asleep.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's your cortisol, Nicole. Like, I wonder if do you have an idea of what that could be?
Motherhood.
Yeah.
Which means cortisol.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's gotten better, but
yeah.
I had a thought as you were speaking, Christina. So obviously we're just getting more and more of that, more demand to be on our phone, more technology being ever present in our life. I mean, our cars, like I just heard something or saw something online about Teslas, which, are a very popular vehicle, but like the Teslas, the EMFs in the Tesla, the cars are making people sick or can make people sick. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I had never thought about that. And so as we move more in towards that in this, advanced world, what would you say are kind of some of the symptoms or the ailments that, our bodies can experience, and how can acupuncture, traditional Chinese medicine support us with getting back to our natural states?
Okay, let's start with the acupuncture side of things. We have meridians, we have energy lines, and they have been studied and described in different ways, but they're basically lines of energy that connect our organs and our limbs and basically every part of our body. Those meridians are made because of the alignment of basically the gravitational pull of the sun on top pulls, and some would say even the North Star, but the sun, and then the center of the earth at the bottom. And so we are like suspended and on top of the planet. And just like the planet and every living thing, actually everything has a midline pull. And that midline pull is kind of like our spine, but it's like the tree trunk where all the meridians emanate from. So that basically makes sure that energetically and ultimately with our blood, our fluid, our nerve flow, everything else can be distributed properly throughout our body. So that's always happening no matter what, because the sun's always there and we're on the earth and there's the center of gravity. So those meridians are there, but then they're also affected by electromagnetic frequencies. And so, number one, consciousness can help us to realign ourselves just by, it's like telling our body and affirming what that is. Like that's what meditation is. And ultimately, from this perspective, the definition of disease or things going wrong in our body, that from their perspective, it's because the chi or the energy flow is off. And wherever energy is or is not, blood is going to be or won't be. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So it starts with the energy flow and then everything else follows that. So if you're not having a regular period, for example, or your period's super painful, or something's stagnant, first you got to fix the energy and then things follow.
Yeah, there was two comments I had where you were talking about the meridians, and in the various sessions that I've had with you, you've spoken to like meridian points that represent like your parents, meridian points that represent anger, meridian points that represent just like overall health and reproduction. So it's crazy to like really think about just how much the body is so beautiful. It blows my mind what it can do for us, but quite literally where we hold specific types of energy in relation to what we're experiencing, within our day-to-day lives. So it makes sense that we would have to come back to our natural selves and ground and like have our energy flowing to stay healthy. Nicole, you look like you had a thought, so I wanted to pivot to you.
I have a lot of thoughts.
Okay, go for it.
I'm just trying to think of how to ask them and if they're relevant. So one question that I have is, how does acupuncture help somebody who is struggling with infertility? One question. Second question is, when you're talking about the meridians, I've been really interested lately in EFT, and they talk about how it's they said that it essentially does the same thing that acupuncture can do as far as the meridians in the body, but without the needles. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are on EFT versus acupuncture. Like
That's
if you
tapping,
feel,
right, Nick?
mm-hmm.
Okay, got it.
So basically, from my perspective, from what I've learned so far, I believe that every culture has figured out their own ways to realign the meridians. And they described the meridians differently. So meridian is one way of describing it. I believe there are many, many ways. For some, it might have been dancing or spinning or definitely massage, definitely chanting, using sound frequencies. You know what? Honestly, just standing and exercising and being in nature and next to trees, or even if you're in the desert, there are infinite ways to balance because we're humans and we're meant to be balanced, just like the animals. So it doesn't have to be complicated. I really don't think we would need as much acupuncture if we were just living more balanced lives, to be honest. But yes, EFT is the tapping. And before we ever had needles, really acupuncture was acupressure. It was using massage or even rocks or shells or some other implement to stimulate. Oh, and then what was the other question? I forgot.
Oh, how acupuncture can support with infertility. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. Okay. So infertility.
Asking for a friend.
Okay. Infertility, my understanding of infertility is that the challenge with infertility is that it's usually not a simple problem. Like, for example, oh, you're anemic. If we just help you not to be anemic, then you're going to be fertile. I wish it was that simple, and it just isn't. So, according to Chinese medicine, if your menstrual cycle is off and your fertility is off, it's because many factors came together to cause the body to be in that state. And that's why it's so hard to treat, especially when you're just being cerebral about it. So I don't even like to say acupuncture fixes it. I like to say traditional Chinese medicine can help because yes, the meridians may be off, and the acupuncture can help the energy flow to be improved. It can help to reestablish healthy energy flow to the uterus, as well as all of the other organs that are helping with fertility. But herbal medicine is also part of that, and the nutritional aspect of it is part of it. So, there are, and even a lot of the understanding of the 5 elements and how those relate to your emotions, because emotions cause the meridian and the energy flow to be off. So it really has to be, I don't want to say has to, but generally needs to be a multi-pronged approach. And I could go more into, some of the different specifics.
I was seeing a woman for acupuncture about sometime last year before I got diagnosed with the infertility issues, and once they gave me the diagnosis, she was like, well, there's not really much more I can do for you, and that left me feeling a little hopeless. So that was kind of a bummer. And then I came across another doctor who does acupuncture and works with a lot of herbal medicine, and he did something else. I forgot what it was, and I really liked the approach that he had, but he was just so far, and it was going to be, gosh, like an hour and a half drive, probably there and back, several times a week, and I was like, I can't do that. I have a full-time job. I can't drive all the way to, here and do the appointment and everything, and I was so bummed. But yeah, I didn't quite understand just how it work to do it, and especially after she was kind of like, well, I can't help you anymore, bye.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. People have gone through all the testing, and I don't want to down Western medicine because there are a lot of ways that helps, and a lot of times if everything else is in order, the technology is great, it works, but sometimes people's bodies are exhausted and depleted, so their bodies kind of forced or compelled to get pregnant when maybe it needed more nourishment and regeneration. They would have gone through the pregnancy better that way. But so maybe I can just talk a little bit about what helps a person to be fertile, because that might answer the question of how acupuncture can help. Does that sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, the two biggest things that I see, three. Okay, first of all, exhaustion. People are depleted. They're exhausted and they're stressed. And so the hormone cortisol and adrenaline, which are the stress hormones, which we need to produce in order to do the work we do half the time and just get through the day. When those are on, it actually suppresses the fertility hormones. So that's a bummer, right? Because how do we stop being stressed? It means that, okay, so that's one, is the stress and exhaustion. Number two is the yin, the mucous membranes, which really, like the GI tract, the uterus, the vagina, those are lined by mucous membranes. They need to be fertile. So they need to be moist. We need the microbiome or the beneficial bacteria to be good enough. We need enough blood, because the amount of blood and the richness of the blood, it's not just, is your iron and your B okay? That's what they call like testing the blood, but like really like having rich, nourishing blood means that the womb is going to be really a good home for a baby to grow. It's the garden. Okay. So that's the yin. So I said the stress and all that, the nourishment, and then the other one is stagnation. And so stagnation is that blood clotting, or the growing of things like fibroids and endometriosis and cysts and all those things. Those are stagnation. And the stagnation can come from toxins. Yes, they can come from toxins, but they can also come from stress. But long-term old stress, like how we hold, with every emotion we have, there is a biochemical result. Like you can't feel anything without the body producing a chemical every time. And so eventually it becomes a solidified material thing. Does that make sense? So a lot of the reason for infertility, it's actually very old, according to this way of thinking. So it's old, meaning how you grew up, so like, how you're thinking, how you're feeling, it's not the only thing, and it can be changed, and herbs, amazingly, and acupuncture and massage, and even good, healthy sex, orgasms, like all of these things can actually help and change metaphysics. Like everything that you two are doing, that so many of these amazing guests you have are doing, help us to think and feel differently and to believe differently and to bring in the magic back, which ultimately makes the stagnation go away and turn it into flow.
Yeah.
But acupuncture, like a needle going in along with cupping and heat and all these things can really get that moving. But it's helpful to have the other stuff happening too.
Totally. Were you going to say something, Nicole? Oh. I know that was so beautiful. I feel like that was so well encapsulated everything that we've discussed over the years, where I'm like, yes, it's alternative, original forms of thoughts, getting back to the old ways and blending that in with, Western ideology. And that is how we can heal and move forward and live in the day and age that we live in now. But you had said something that I thought was really profound, because I'm also on like a health kick in general. Like I really care a lot about the types of food that I'm consuming, because I see that there's just been a lot of extra additives that have been put into foods for the sake of the bottom line and for preservation. And they're really like, our bodies are not meant to consume toxins, basically. And you had said something about just like what we're eating and then the microbiome. And I wonder if there's a link there for how we exist now and that being passed on to future generations. And if you could speak to that.
Yeah, it's actually been something I've been thinking a lot about. And it's well, first I'll say the yin. Yin is the nourishing fluid component. Yang is our energy. And then yin is the nourishing fluid component. So to start with, in order to have a healthy microbiome, we need to have a very moistening diet. And a lot of the things that we have, so cortisone and adrenaline tend to basically dry you out because they're going to lower your estrogen, progesterone. You won't digest as well, blah, blah, blah. But but a yin type of diet means drinking aloe vera juice, eating nopales, the cactus. Okra is an amazing, the slimy things are actually very good. Think about vaginal mucus when we're fertile. It's like okra. So eat okra.
I've never had that, but Nicole, for those watching on YouTube, she's making a face, so I have to assume that she's tried it, but I'm like, I don't even know what that is.
Oh, you don't?
It's fucking gross.
Hey, when people are trying to have a baby, they'll freaking do anything a lot of times, but
I've done some crazy shit to try to have a baby lately, but I think I draw the line at eating okra because I think it's so disgusting.
well,
what
but
is it?
It's actually I believe it might be a succulent. It's a vegetable. Oh. It's more common in the South. Filipino people eat it. It's
slimy.
It is slimy, but if you saute it, actually it takes the slime out, so it makes it easier. So you might want to try the saute. And if you can actually buy it, frozen, and the slime's like a little better if you.
I think I bought it frozen, and
but
cooked it, and it was awful.
She's like, I don't know, Christina. I don't think
they actually have okra pills too. But
I'll take a pill.
But anyway, but it's the mucilaginous, nourishing, moistening soups. The more moistening the diet, in some ways, the better, because it actually helps your microbiome, meaning the beneficial bacteria, to stick. Beneficial bacteria don't like dryness. Like, how are they going to live in a dry environment? So they need a lot of prebiotics. And so, it's not, moistening is not just about fish oils or, eating enough oil. It's also those mucilaginous quality things, like chia seed water too is a good one.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm just more like a perspective. Mm-hmm. So I just recently heard about this probably a month or two ago. And someone said that there was this TikTok, okay? There was this TikTok trend going around about trying to get pregnant and people taking Mucinex. And so there was this like Mucinex fertility thing. And I was like, what is this? And I looked into it and I saw it everywhere. I don't go on TikTok, but I did to try to figure that out. As a medical professional and someone who does this, what are your thoughts on these TikTok trends? Well, that one specifically, if we're talking about the mucus and how it relates to fertility and all of that.
Yeah. So I don't ever recommend that. And I don't recommend pharmaceuticals not because I don't believe in them ever, but because it's not part of my scope of practice. But Mucinex, the idea behind it is that you are taking what might be condensed and conglomerated. If you think of, I'm going to get really gross here, like a booger in your nose is basically condensed mucus. And when you're trying to get it out, which Mucinex helps you do, it moistens the mucus so that it becomes slimy again so you can blow your nose and get it out. So same idea in your vagina. It's just that when there's a lot of dryness in the vagina, it's more like, what mucus there is condensed a bit. So it is one way, but it's not going to work actually, if you don't have a moistening enough diet to begin with, and all the other things need to come into play. So
yeah, that makes sense. And I was just thinking as you were talking, I was like, you don't really see that in the American diet. Like, moist foods aren't really like everyday foods that we consume. So I just had that passing thought. I wanted
Well,
to
Americans
share.
don't like the word moist either. A lot of Americans don't. Like, it kind of grosses me out sometimes, depending on how it's used. It's like, oh,
moist.
Yeah.
Yeah, but part of it is that the fatty foods are technically moistening, but crackers, protein bars, a lot of those things are actually pretty drying, because in order to be able to travel, eat them in the car, eat them on the run, you're basically expecting your body to reconstitute them with water. So you're actually pulling your own fluids out to go into the dried up food so that your body can use the food. Kind of like kibble for a dog. Like, we don't want to do that. So it's one reason, like, Asian cooking is so beneficial if you were to use that as kind of a way to do it, because if you're going to have like sautéed vegetables or boiled vegetables and soups and things cooked in a crock pot, moist meat, like like pulled meat that's shredded and stewed, and Mexicans do that a lot too. Those kinds of things are going to actually help the body to be very, very moist. But you want moist. That means you're not going to age as fast.
Oh, we love that.
Yes, exactly. Fresh fruit, not dried fruit, not crackers, not tortilla chips, not, and I have a hard time with it too, because when you're trying to function and go to work and all that, it's really hard not to do it. But yeah.
You just gave me so much to sit with, because I was thinking about it. I'm like, wow, like, I really enjoy soups. Like, I could eat soups like all year round. I like drink so much water. I have not gotten into sauerkraut or kimchi, but those are very like liquidy types of foods, but they intrigue me. So I'm like, maybe this is just like what's going to best serve me. But how do you see this? So like the microbiome being passed on, or at least the state of microbiomes passed on through the lineage.
So, you and I had kind of talked about this a little bit. It's such an interesting topic, and there's a book that I'm listening to right now called "The History of Humanity in 6 Drinks," and it's look it up. It's fascinating. But he talks about the microbiome also there, and how people would really keep the beneficial bacteria going with the style of cooking and then the beverages that were made. So, and basically what happens is generation after generation with the beer and even the way the soups were made, where the microbiome was developing in the pot they were cooking in. The mother that you use, they call it a mother, to produce whiskey, to produce beer, to produce kombucha, yogurt, all of that. They call it a mother because it has the beneficial bacteria that seed the next, and seed the next generations. And they even felt that women sometimes had the best hands for making bread because they were touching their vaginas, and then they were getting those bacteria in the food, and then the food would be better. All of these bacteria are part of the fertility. And I've actually, in my own kind of personal meditation about all of this, I've started feeling like, so this is not like, it's just me, that the passing on of these bacteria, however you can do that for yourself in the home, not just doing it as a pill, like, oh, I'll just take the pill, that you're actually helping to, because those bacteria are ancient. It is one physical way that we can carry the energy of the generations forward. It's part of fertility, truly. And we need that moisture to do it, but then we need to bring in the bacteria to do it. and and I'm a proponent of taking the pills, but I think that we need to also use those foods. And what happens have you ever looked at blood in a microscope, like live living blood?
I have with
So
you.
yeah, so living blood under a microscope, when you get a chance to just prick the blood, stick it in the microscope, and then look at it, you can see the microbiome in the blood. And a lot of people, so whenever I see somebody who's lived a very kind of land-based life, so sometimes I'll have people who've come, kind of straight from Mexico, living much more close to the land, and I look at their blood and it's teeming with bacteria. Their blood looks like the Milky Way, like outer space, when you're out in the desert and it's the night sky and you could see all the stars. It's like a spiritual experience to look at their blood. They are in their body, they're carrying the bacteria of the ancestors forward in them. It's really powerful. And then I look at so many people who are living modernized lives. You look at their blood and there's hardly any bacteria. It's like empty. And you might have a couple. And so then you have to start like, okay, but when I see that, it's like they've lost the gift of the ancestors. The ancestors were passing that forward and then they lost it because it was killed. And it was killed by the chemicals and by everything, all the stuff that we have in this world. They lost it. So like, no wonder they're infertile, no wonder they're feeling so unhealthy, and we have to get it back. It's like part of rewilding humanity, but we need to be moist to do it.
Speaking of moist and pills, I have a question. So if we move away from the idea of infertility and move towards the idea of, okay, now this person has had this baby and all of that has gone very nicely. It had started, and it might have even been, I mean, maybe it's been around forever and I just didn't know, but I remember hearing about people doing like the placenta pills. Oh. And some people swear by it, but then I've also heard that there's been studies that there actually isn't any value or benefit to it. So what are your thoughts on that?
I would be pro. That's been done for eons as well in all kinds of different ways. Before it could be dried, it could be put into alcohol and kind of preserved that way. It was done in different ways, but so scientifically, I've never actually done the research to study the value of placenta pills, but from a metaphysical perspective, I think there's benefit in carrying semi-precious minerals in your pocket, or taking a rock or a tree or something that has meaning. To me, that is a way to energetically, if not even scientifically, nourish the child. And I don't know. I have tried placenta creams. They're not made now necessarily given to the public from babies. So sometimes people think like, oh, they're taking the placenta from the baby. They can keep growing placenta, but or they're taking placenta of an animal. So I don't know. There's all kinds of feelings about that and the ethics, but it's an old practice. And I would say as long as you're using your own placenta, I think it absolutely has value. And there are stem cells in the cord, and so you can actually save those, and the stem cells have value as well, especially your own and the ones you're giving.
What value would you say somebody would get from the placenta pills? Because I've just heard, oh, it's great, and it helped with, I don't know, like my hair, my skin, and but I wonder if there's more. Mm-hmm.
Are you talking about your own placenta?
Your own. So, after you have a baby and you want to make pills out of your own placenta.
Yeah. So the idea is that, again, I've really not read the research, but what we learned in Chinese medical school, and some of what we learned in Chinese medical school isn't researched. I bet you there's a ton of research on this one, though. Um, it would be for the immune system. It would be, yes, of course, for aging. You would bring it in case of serious illness like cancer or anything that was life threatening. Generally, those would be preserved for times that are most needed. And in Chinese medicine, we weren't taught like, oh, if you don't like your wrinkles, use placenta pills. That's probably a more modern idea, even though the Chinese now do that for wrinkles and stuff. Like they'll sell you placenta cream and stuff. But if you're saving your own, generally you would be using that for times when it's quite needed for health.
It's fascinating. I want to just point out the common theme, or one of the common themes throughout this discussion, of just like the importance of getting back into yin energy, feminine, the divine feminine energy, and how we as a society do not live in that at this point in time. But I really hope that we are transitioning toward that type of energy, because the patriarchal system as it is now is making us sick. Period.
Yeah. And the womb, we've talked about this too. It is the entry point to the planet.
Yes.
Women are walking doorways from one dimension to this dimension. And interestingly, that is why that womb space, while a baby is in there, is filled with water and yin and fluids and slimy stuff and all microbiome and blood and all those things. It's the primordial soup, so to speak, that allows physical life to take form. And so in order for us to achieve that environment, we have to have it in ourselves. And we can't be like, well, I'm going to be on the pill and I'm never going to have a period. I hate my period, and or my period sucks, so I'm just not going to have a period. And then I'll do whatever I'm going to do. And I understand, like, we don't want to get pregnant all the time. I'm not against birth control, but the mentality a lot of times is you don't need to have a period, and it doesn't really matter. And then as soon as you get married or you feel like you're ready, it's time to have a baby. Okay, let's try. Okay, hopefully you get pregnant in a year, but you've totally lost touch with how your period even is. And, and I understand all the mitigating circumstances or extenuating circumstances for why, but that's super important, because again, to achieve the environment, the one of the reasons that I was driven to find this book about Mami Wata is she was the divine feminine, kind of the beginning of humanity, and the beginning of humanity came from the ocean, Mami Wata, and we have to create a miniature ocean in order for fertility to happen. So it's really, like, you can imagine why it's so hard to fix fertility, but it's possible. And the process of fixing it and then maintaining it, you can do it. I believe that you can do it even if you're busy. Absolutely, you can do it even if you're busy, even if life is hard. You just got to kind of know what to do. And we're powerful beings. We can achieve the things that are needed to make that happen.
Yeah, I said this at the beginning and I just want to echo it again, but I truly feel like once I got my cycles on track, working with you, taking care of my body and really supporting it, is like when my intuition just really took off and really came in. And I do my annual checkups with my gyno, and everything looks really good down there. So that's great. And I really attest to just like consistency on both like the 3D level, but the energetic level, of course.
Yes.
And your work is a really big help, and as are you. So,
and I know
yeah.
you do so much other work too. You're doing a lot.
Nicole, did you have another question? No. Christina, is there anything that you'd like to leave us with as we wrap up? This was so fun.
Oh my goodness. Well, gosh, I guess I would say that, when it comes to figuring out how to maintain fertility and a healthy cycle, just know that we're designed for it. Even though it feels like the odds are against us with the chemical, like we can sure paint a forget dark, sorry, I'm getting that out of it. We can paint a grim picture sometimes of the future, but from what I've seen, when people know what to do, it doesn't have to cost $1 million. And when people start making certain changes over time, even if they're with computers and even if they have a hard time sleep, even with all that, they still are able to bring back the fertility, even if they need the medical support. Sometimes if you're trying to get the technology of fertility to work better, the stuff that you can do that I've described here can make the difference for those fertility procedures to actually work better. So it doesn't have to be grim. People often feel like, it's impossible. It's not. So.
And for the people that are local, because we have a lot of local women that I think are of childbearing age and are moving towards wanting to start families, or maybe already have, wanting to grow their families. You're located in Camarillo, is that correct?
Yeah,
the office?
Yeah. Camarillo, California. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you also have taught some classes that we'll link in the show notes that are available for people to become more familiar with your work. And
a class on the fertility years or menstruation years, and one on menopause, because life isn't over just because we've gone through menopause. And you still want to think about the water.
Yeah, for sure. And then we'll just link all that information as to where people can find you. But I certainly think that you've given us a lot of information to sit with, and I just really love the theme of like the feminine, quite literally birthing the new, and like taking care of that, and the importance that your womb space has in relation to literally life. So
Aw, thank you.
Yeah.
And I do want to say also, if you've lost your womb,
oh yeah, that's a whole
still, I just have to say it. If you've lost your womb or you don't have a womb, we have an energetic womb, and men too. Like really, the womb space. I mean, there's the physical womb, so you can't change anything about that. But you can still embody all of these things. Creation is in all of us, and we can all embody that, and all of us benefit from from that water thing. We haven't talked about male fertility. It could be a different thing.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was like, wow, male fertility, I don't know that it gets enough attention either, because that's a whole separate component
they suffer too.
Yeah. Like, the speed of the sperm count and the sperm count as they get into the second half of their 30s, like
talk
that's
about
a thing.
The water. They have to. They have womb space too, but it's like in the testicles, and they've got swimmers. Like, it's still the water,
Wow, that is the water. That is key to all life, quite literally. But thank you so much. We like to do a card pull at the end of our episodes. Would you be so kind as to do our card pull for this episode? And then which deck are you pulling from, if you want to share?
I'm pulling from Benabel Wen. She has the Book of Maps.
Okay.
And her tarot cards, which are, I love them. It's the main deck I use.
Cool. Okay.
And I know I've got tons of decks, so, but, okay, so, I knew I was going to pull this one. So I pulled 15.
Okay.
The devil.
Okay.
And you know what? That's good luck, even though it doesn't look like good luck. But the devil, it's Venus, and a lot of the things that were that were divine feminine were demonized and turned into bad, and that's one of them. So I think it's just something for me to say that that look at the divine feminine, and when you see that things are considered bad, a lot of times it's because way back in history, patriarchy actually started to turn everything that was female spirituality into something that was considered bad. So, some of the spirituality stuff that we study, we need to turn it upside down a little bit and realize, like, it's not bad. It's actually just super powerful.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
it's so funny. I knew I was going to get that card.
I love it. Yeah. I don't know if I said this at the beginning, but Christina is very intuitive. She's one of my healers that I go to. So no promises, but I usually get like an intuitive download session or a psychic session with her when I do get acupuncture. So it's wonderful. Yeah.
I get one too when I do a session for Gabby. I get a psychic session from her. I try to make it about her, but somehow.
Well, I know this isn't our first lifetime together. We've confirmed that in a session, but thank you so much for joining. We're so grateful. I learned a lot.
Such an honor and a joy, and just meeting both of you. And I'm so glad to meet you, Nicole.
Oh, you really, too. My sister kept talking so much about you. So I was like, okay, she's going to have a lot of knowledge. And I love the idea of doing an episode on male fertility. Not that we have a lot of male listeners, but, the women will pass the message along.
Yeah. True.
Or they'll make their men listen. So,
yeah. All right, guys. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Until the next time.
Bye.
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 Bye.